In 1894, a crimson-bound manuscript was discovered in the flooded cellar of Ashford Manor upon the Cornish coast. Its pages, inscribed by numerous hands across more than 2 centuries, contain accounts that defy rational explanation. I have devoted 7 years to the translation and annotation of this document. What follows is the first entry, dated March of 1694, written by one Nathaniel Ashford, founder of the manor and the bloodline that would come to curse his name. This is the Vermillion Codex. Entry the first, the Ashford Manuscript. Let it be known to whosoever may discover this record that I, Nathaniel Ashford, gentleman of Somerset, do set down these words in full possession of my faculties, though I fear that possession shall not long endure. I have built a house upon the cliffs, a fine house of good Cornish stone with eastern windows, to receive the dawn and western prospects overlooking the channel, a house befitting a man of learning and substantial fortune, a house that should have been my family's glory for generations hence. But I have built it wrong, or rather, and this is the horror that even now causes my hand to tremble upon the page, I have built it precisely, meticulously exactly as the manuscript instructed, and thereby I have built it more correctly than any house should ever be built. The manuscript came into my possession 3 years past, in a manner I shall not here relate, for the transaction involved persons of such standing that their reputation must remain unmarred by association with what followed. Sufficient to say that it was recovered from the coup of a Moorish scholar in Toledo, a man who had himself obtained it from sources still more ancient and less Christian. It was titled, in Latin characters, De Architectura Profana, of profane architecture. I thought it an ancient builder's manual. I was not wholly wrong. The text described methods of construction whereby a dwelling might be made to accommodate forces and entities that exist in planes adjacent to our own. It spoke of angles that serve as hinges between realities, of proportions that create resonance with realms beyond the sphere of human perception. Being a man of modern philosophical temperament, this was the age of Newton, of rational inquiry. I did not credit the manuscript's more fantastical claims. I saw in it merely the superstitious ravings of medieval architects attempting to explain principles of acoustics and structural stability through the lens of their primitive cosmology. Yet the geometries described therein were fascinating, novel. When I commissioned the building of my manor, I instructed the builders to follow the manuscript's proportions precisely. I told myself it was an experiment in ancient engineering. I told myself I was expanding the boundaries of architectural knowledge. I told myself many things that I now know to be lies born of willful ignorance. The house was completed this past November. I took residence with my wife, Catherine, and our infant son, Edmund. The servants numbered 12. A cook, a groundskeeper, maids and footmen, sufficient to maintain a household of quality. Within a fortnight, the servants began to complain of sounds in the night. Footsteps in empty corridors, doors opening of their own accord, shadows that moved contrary to the light source. I dismissed these complaints as the superstitious fancies common to country folk residing in an unfamiliar place. Then Catherine began to speak of the rooms. "Nathaniel," she said to me one evening as we sat before the fire, "how many chambers does the house contain?" 32, I replied, reciting from the architect's plans, including the cellars and attics. She was silent for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the firelight in a manner most strange. "I have counted 37, she whispered. I laughed. I assured her she had merely counted certain closets and passages as separate rooms. But that night I rose from our bed and walked the corridors with a lamp, counting as I went. 39. I counted again at dawn. 41. I have not slept soundly since. The house is changing, or perhaps it has always been thus, and only now am I beginning to perceive its true nature. Rooms appear where no rooms should exist. Corridors extend beyond what the external dimensions of the structure can possibly contain. I have measured the facade, 112 feet in length. I have paced the longest interior hallway, 137 feet, and I did not account for the thickness of the walls. There is more space inside than outside. The manuscript, when I returned to it with new and desperate scrutiny, revealed meanings I had not previously grasped. The Latin was intentionally obscure, coded in alchemical terminology, but the truth beneath is this: the house was never meant to be merely a dwelling for human habitation. It is a junction, a place where the geometry of our world grows thin, where angles can be made to fold in ways that permit passage from elsewhere. Something is using those passages. I have seen it only in fragments, a shadow too angular to belong to any earthly form, a sound like stone grinding against stone, in dimensions perpendicular to height, width, and depth. Catherine will not speak of what she has witnessed, but she has taken to keeping Edmund in her chambers at all hours, and she has forbidden me entrance. Yesterday, 2 of the maids fled the house, running down the coastal road in their nightclothes, screaming of things that reached for them from corners that possessed too many sides. I should flee as well. I should take my family from this place and see it burn to the foundation stones. But I cannot. The manuscript has shown me such visions, such geometries, the mathematics of impossible space, the architecture of realms beyond human knowing. I understand now why the Moorish scholar kept it locked away. I understand why the hands that wrote it, hands that inscribed these angular characters in ink I dare not analyze, concealed its meanings in obscurity. Some knowledge once perceived becomes a cage. Some doors once opened cannot be closed. I have begun work on a larger volume, a codex bound in crimson leather treated with compounds the manuscript describes, a book to contain the accumulated knowledge of what this house reveals, what it allows passage to, what it teaches to those who dare to learn. Other Ashfords will come. The bloodline will continue, bound to this place by inheritance and by the terrible curiosity that I now know runs in our veins like a congenital defect. They will add their accounts to mine. The codex will grow, and perhaps in some distant century it will be found by those who still possess the wisdom to fear what they do not understand, who will read these words and know to leave well enough alone. Or perhaps it will be found by those like me, too clever for their own preservation, too proud to heed warnings written in the blood and madness of their predecessors. If you are reading this, know that you have already chosen your path. The codex has been found because it wished to be found. Welcome to the house that Ashford built. The entry ends. A small notation in different ink appears in the margin. Nathaniel Ashford was discovered dead in his study, April 1694. Cause of death unknown. His wife Catherine lived until 1701, but never spoke again. Their son Edmund inherited the manor at age 7. Thus concludes the first entry of the Vermillion Codex. The next translation will be revealed in due course. Until then, mind the angles of the rooms you inhabit. Some houses are not entirely here.